Hello everyone. We have another game with the black pieces against Sandor's, rated 1587. He puts his knight in front of his c-pawn. We're just going to play the d5 to prevent him from playing e4. And he goes with the Jobava London. The idea of this opening is to attack the c7 pawn early, but we don't care. In a lot of my other speedrun videos, you've seen me play a6 here, just to stop the idea from ever transpiring. But I'm going to try something different here. I'm going to go with c6, which stops it a different way, and also supports the center. So we're not going to be playing c5 in this version. In the other versions, we were playing a6 and then pushing for c5. But in this version, we'll play c6, and then maybe later we'll push a5, right? We'll switch it up. So he goes e3, solidifying his pawn chain, opening up his other bishop. We're going to develop our minor piece. We want to get this bishop outside of our pawn chain. So let's do it with tempo on the queen. Simple move. I want to play simple chess. He blocks with the bishop. This threatens to win our bishop. So we could trade. Or let's just trade. We have all these pawns on light. I don't mind getting rid of my light square bishop. I'm now going to put this pawn on light, right? And these pawns act as mini bishops. Mini light square bishops. They can't reach as far, but I have a lot of them. So they're like little bishops all over the place. So he moves his queen probably so he can castle queenside, would be my guess. And I just want to continue my development, really. So I'm just going to bring out my knight. And I have a very solid position. The light square bishop is just not necessary with all these pawns. My dark square bishop can flow freely throughout my pawn chain. And he goes a3, which prevents a bishop b4 ideas, but I don't mind. It would seem like I could force him to give up his dark square bishop. Like you could just develop, right? You could go for c5 here. But I feel like this move forces him to give up his bishop. I mean, he doesn't have to move it, but I get to take it at some point. And I feel like having the only dark square bishop would be nice because that's my good bishop. So if he can't contest me, that would be nice. So I'm going to go for that. Okay, let's take it. He did h3, which I don't know what that is. He recaptures. Okay, and now he got rid of his bishop. Now we're the only ones with a bishop, and we can put it on a more active square than before. We can also break in the center now that his bishop's not controlling it, which I like. So if we break and he takes, then we take, and that looks really nice for us. So I say while we have the opportunity, let's break with e5. It's even better than breaking with c5. Normally you can't break with e5, so you try to play c5, but here I'm allowed to play e5 and open up the position for myself. So he retreats the knight, offering a trade, but I feel like he should be castling and just improving his position. We have the opportunity to improve our knight and hit the queen. I don't know, queen goes somewhere. We could do that, but that's only if we want to keep more pieces on the board. I don't want to waste time. I just want to develop. He could take it if he wants. I don't really care. This is probably a better move and then playing the bishop, but I'm going to show you how to play an equal game, you know, where the pieces kind of come off pretty quickly. So here it's just bishop against knight, and his knight doesn't have anywhere to go, so black is preferred. So we should castle. Material's even. We have no weaknesses. we have good pawn structure, but white also has good pawn structure with no real weaknesses. It's just we're black. We somehow are castled first, and we have a bishop against the knight, and the diagonal's open from a bishop, so you'd rather be black. He starts this pawn storm against my bishop, but he didn't ask himself what the drawback is, and he's not castled, and we've been talking about this. So we're going to throw in this free developing move that's very disruptive towards this position, and now the position was equal, black was a little bit better, but after a 4, black is definitely better because he can't castle. So if you throw in a check like this, he's going to block with the queen, so you have to have some type of follow-up if you're going to do that. You could try to mess up his pawn structure, take the knight, he has to take with the pawn, and then take the queen, king takes, and say, oh, you have doubled isolated pawns, so better for me in an endgame. So that's an option. Another option is move your bishop somewhere, like here. Should I try to play the endgame? Hold on. I guess I could because the e3 pawn is backwards and weak. So it should be a pretty easy endgame. Okay, so you could move the bishop and just say you're better, but then you kind of have to play an entire chess game without messing up. I think it's a lot easier to go for this check, get him to block with his queen so he doesn't lose stuff, and then take the knight. He can't take with the king because he'll lose his queen. So he has to take with the pawn. But now, since we're giving him a bad structure for the endgame, we don't want him to have his queen. So we take his queen so he doesn't have any weird counterplay. And now we play against these. And because this is a backwards pawn that he can't push, we can cement a one rook here, and that's just game over. So even though material's even, black is completely winning, in my estimation. So he tries to get active, but these moves don't actually count. And now we plant this here, saying you're never going to push, and now we have our bind. This is our bind. Yeah, he tries to, break it down, but we have the other rook. Now this pawn's hanging. He trades, but now we have the best. We have the positional bind like this. So now we can go pawn hunting, or we can slowly but surely improve our position. I say we slowly and surely improve our position because you don't immediately win anything. You go here, he blocks with the rook. So let's just improve our position. First things first, I don't want him gaining lots of space, so I'm going to throw in this move h5 to improve the position this way, and then I'll play f5 and move my king up. So he makes king moves, which is a little weird to me. Maybe he wants to break here, but that just hangs a pawn, so I'm not sure what he wants. Because he didn't push these pawns after my move, I have the option of going h4. This freezes his pawn in place so it can never push without hanging. It's a nice positional idea, and his rook can never get access to it, but his king potentially can. But if his king goes away from here, then you're going to take that stuff. But I'd rather go f5 because I want to get my king to the center. This hangs a pawn. Don't know what that was. Thank you for the pawn. He obviously thought I was going to take with the pawn and give him, I don't know, an open line or something, but okay, so now he's moving this pawn, which doesn't make any sense. I'm going to move my king up, and I'm up a pawn with a winning endgame. So he's going here, but again, this doesn't matter unless he breaks it down, but he can't break it down because that hangs pawns. He might try to go here to trade the rooks, which is fine. So we want to make him mad. To do that, let's play c5, because now he can't go here. He's going to huff and puff, and this move is just terrible, of course, right? So now let's just positionally bind his pawn try to put him in some type of weird pseudo zigzwang. He could hunt the pawn. Not anymore though. He used to be able to, but now my f pawn covers that. Yeah, so his position's just getting tighter and tighter. You can't push the pawns because they hang. So he has to just move his rook back and forth, which gives us infinite time to improve our position. And this is what happens when you have weaknesses in an endgame like this. You don't have to like play chess, you know, with the queens on the board and figure out all this stuff. You just, like, if it's winning, you know you have a bind and you can just take your time. So he's moving his rook back and forth, and I'm moving my king closer to these pawns. Why? To defend them. Why? So I can push them and none of them are hanging. Now, why do I want to push them? Because he has 2 and I have 3. So now he's going back here to support this because he sees he's running out of ideas. But now we get to push. And now I'm going to go here. Why? Because if he continues with his plan, that's going to make his king go there and he'll hang a different pawn. So now he can't do his plan. He's back to being planless. And he has to move his rook back and forth, which gives us, again, infinite time to improve our position. And this is a super instructive game for how to play equal positions. And like I said, once you get the rook here, because of the backwards pawn, there's this weak square. It's an outpost. And because we control the outpost and he doesn't have the equivalent rook on his outpost, we win the game. Okay, so he's just pressuring some stuff, and we proceed with our plan of creating a passed pawn. We have to not run out of time though, which is a thing. So he takes. I'm just gonna take towards the center. There's no, I mean, either way is winning, but whatever. This way controls this square one more second. Okay, so now you could take with the pawn, but that would disrupt your control over the square. So we could just take with the rook. He tries to gain sideways access, but I'm just going to push my passed pawn. If he trades, I mean, that's an auto loss. He cannot trade. The game plays itself. When you're up a connected passed pawn, you can run your king 1,000 moves to over here, and he can't do anything. So he has to move his rook. It's a weird move. Because now you just lose the game for sure, like 1,000%. And hopefully you guys know how to win when you're up a connected passed pawn. You see, this is not stalemate because he has other stuff on the board, right? So he has to move a pawn. Now, if he moves both pawns, you do not want to take them both because that will be stalemate. So we're going to take the first one so we can try to queen, right? Oh, I see. Even if you take it, that opens up this one. Lol. See, as an example, I'm going to take this, but when he goes here, if you take it with the D pawn, that's a draw because of stalemate. If you take it with the F pawn, he can move the other one. But in this case, I mean, you could have done this last move, but you can checkmate him. 52 move game, very long. Because of the end game, actually. Okay, so he plays in the center with his Jobava London. We just grab some space, and we play developing moves. We play c6. He no longer has any ideas with the knight. The knight becomes misplaced, and we just can protect the center. Development. Forced move because our bishop was hanging. And here, center and development. We now have a nice light square blockade. We don't need the bishop. Development and center. And this is kind of like a threat because the bishops are stronger than the knights. Especially if I have an open diagonal, and like you saw at the end of the game, it was stronger. So You could develop, but if you could win free stuff, like if there was a free pawn, that's free stuff. This may not look like free stuff to you, but if a bishop is stronger than knight, then this is free stuff. So we take it because it's free stuff. Then we develop um, towards the center for free. His knight's hit, so he can't ignore this. I mean, if he goes back, you're just going to push. That's terrible. So he has to take, right? And this move, it doesn't look like development because, well, what's it developing? But it removes his knight, which is well developed, and it also will create way more space for our pieces, our rook, our queen, and stuff to use the light squares in the future. It's hard to see now, but you'll see in the game. So this is a forced move, and our position looks good. We have two things in the center to his 0. He goes here, and you definitely should probably hit the queen and then develop the bishop because it's way more awkward for him, but I just wanted to show you what happens if a lot of the pieces get traded. So I just develop in center, force move, and then the most obvious move is castling. And already with this e pawn gone, that e6 pawn, when I pushed it, now the rook has access. If that pawn was still here on e6, it's a lot less offensive power than if it's gone. So then he does this weird move which has to just lose him the game basically, because it lets my queen in and lets me kind of force this endgame. And I'm not sure what the engine thinks about it, but as far as I'm concerned, a human is going to have very tough time defending. Like, it's already -1, but after this endgame, oh, this is the best continuation by a lot. Wow. But not the queen trade. Wow. I mean, that's one of the options, but they're saying best is just to avoid it. But why? Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you let him have a queen and protect his weaknesses? That's insane. No way, dude. Definitely going for this line. And so, okay, so the engine says it's -1 for black or whatever, but regardless of what the number means, you're going to play f5, and you have this bind over this square. And as long as he can never push, that means you're going to get a rook there. If you get a rook there, that means you're going to have two rooks connected. And if he doesn't trade one like he did in the game, you're going to put this one here and lift the other one and become even more offensive. You don't want to be playing this with white. Trust me, you do not want to have to defend this. Extremely difficult. And you always, at the end of the day, lose these. So we do the most obvious move to create the... You don't even have to do this, I feel like. I feel like you could double even. Go here and protect and double, but whatever. You can just blunt it immediately because he can't stop you from going here. If he had went here now, you could have just probably kicked the rook. There. Or just doubled first and then infiltrated. Yeah, so on that account, maybe doubling first was... I don't think it makes a difference. So anyway, we put our rook here, and then he trades it. Now, you don't want to take back with a pawn, because if you plug this with a pawn, then his backwards pawn is suddenly safe and protected, and you can't apply more pressure down the e-file. And then it will become much... I mean, he still has these pawns, but it's more drawish if you do stuff like that. You start losing your positional edge. So we double because we don't want to fill it with a pawn. We want to fill it with a piece, a rook or a king, right? And now the game should be over. You should be able to see how this is a bind. After F5, it's just... You don't even need F5. It's already a bind, but... F5 is nice to have in case he tries to... Actually, I don't even know. It just looks nice. I don't think he can do anything. And then from here, you might be like, I don't know how to win. You basically just attack these pawns. In this case, he can defend them. So I don't waste time going for that immediately. I just improve my only other piece, my king. But first with prophylaxis, right? You could just run your king up the board. That might even be the fastest. But I threw in some weird prophylaxis moves that you don't need to include. I mean, I don't have the computer on, so I don't know what it thinks about any of this, but you don't need to do any of this. You could just run your king up the board, I feel like, and if it gets there, that's also a different way to win. But instead I push these pawns, which just creates a further positional bind on him, right? Because if you just run your king up the board, like it's fine. Well, not that one. Let's do this one. But like, why let him get space and stuff like this? It's still good for black, but why even allow that when you could do the same thing? Let's say he doesn't do this. And now I can walk my king up, but he can never gain space because it hangs. And he's stuck with even weaker structure. So that's why I take the time out to do this. And then just free stuff. And now I can move my king in, but I have the space, not him. So that's the whole point of prophylaxis. And now you're like, oh wait, okay, I'm 1200. I have this position. I see that I have this cool bind that he can't really make progress as white. But what do I do as black? It looks like I can't make progress either. And then you see that he has 2 pawns on the queen side, and we have 3. And so my win condition is to create a passed pawn. You have 2 win conditions: win more of his pawns or create a passed pawn. You can't win more of his unless you get your king super active. The only other one is to push the pawns and create a passer. So that's what I do. I take time out to create the positional bind. You can always do this when you have infinite time. And there's lots of endgame positions where you have infinite time like I do now. So there's no reason not to maximize your position fully before pushing the win condition. Although you don't have to, so it's up to you. I do it because it's even more winning to me. I bring my king in as close as I can for free. And now I have, because if I ever pushed my A pawn, my B pawn was always hanging, but now it's not. So I push, I push, I push, I push, and that's it. And the C pawn is passed, and there's your plan. You just push it, wins you the game. When he goes for counterplay, don't give him any. You can win probably by moving your king up and letting him take this pawn, right? But I don't want to calculate that. So I'm just going to leave my rook here to block and push my pawn. Now if he takes, it's an auto loss, so he has to move his rook back somewhere. And then we can just slowly advance our king and our pawn. And so that's that game. Hopefully that made sense to you. Submit your rapid games in my Discord. I will review them. Maybe. Good luck in your chess. Goodbye.